Hey everybody, welcome back to Angry American Dads. This is Matt, and I am joined by the big man himself, Gaetano. How's it going, brother?
What's going on, Matt? I think we're on a roll here.
Yeah, we are, and I like where this is going. I really do. Last podcast we delved into something I'd seen, and you agree with me, which was freaking great. That it's like we grew up around men that were jack of all trades, master of none, but better than a master of one. That's the full saying, by the way, folks. Anyway, they they could do a lot of stuff. They could do the basics of damn near everything. And you would put something that they hadn't done in front of them, and all of a sudden they'd figure it out with very little prompting. So we did our little venting session on that and what we saw, and we kind of touched on a few things. But this time we want to delve into what we've done. Like in my case, my kids are a little bit older. Mine's 18, 26. Gaetano's are quite a bit younger. But they're in that mid range. Mine are up there a little bit, but it's like the stuff I've done, the stuff he's doing, and the stuff I'm still doing with my kids. Because even though, for instance, my son is not at home at 26, he's out there. It's the same concept as we live next door to my parents. I still go to my father for advice. I still go to my mother for advice.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes because of the lifetimes of experience that they have, they can kind of do that. When I get myself in, up over my head and something, it's kind of, hey, we're here. This isn't that big of a deal. We can actually fix this, which is great because then it kind of resets everything and you're good to go. So we were talking about this before, and it's like you were talking about Gaetano is an extremely lucky man. Him and his wife are able to homeschool their kids. So explain to me, like you were just explaining it a little bit ago, about going the whole year, the projects, everything else, and why you're doing it.
So we've decided, Toy and I have decided that we're gonna, instead of taking a summer off like you and I used to get, we'd go to school for 6 months and take or school 9 months, take 3 months off. I think what we're gonna do is, instead of the usual load that we have on the kids, which is about 4 or 5 subjects a day, we're just going to continue through the summer. And instead of 4 or 5 subjects a day, they're going to do the reading. We've done the assessment test so I can see where they're a little weak, but I also want them to just not be bored, right? So they're not old enough to quote unquote get a job. I'm not, I don't have enough, and my pockets aren't deep enough to send them to camp after camp after camp. So what I think what we're going to do is we've outlined a curriculum between reading books, book reports, apologetics, and maybe a language or two, and then they're going to be working with dad. I've got a couple projects around the house. I've got some work that I've got to do with some of the projects that we manage, that they're going to come with me. Particularly because the weather's nice. I don't like dragging them out in the winter, even though it is good for them. But I think that if we push that, there is a possibility that we could graduate them when they're about 16, maybe 17 at the latest. And you and I were talking about how if we can get them through the BS curriculum, so that they can get to the trade, so that they can actually get to a working age and start accumulating real world skills. Not that they're not going to be accumulating with me, but they can get, if he wants to get a welding certificate, or she wants to get a welding certificate, or an HVAC certificate, or any of the classes that BOCES offers where they can get that fairly easily just by putting the time in, then they're going to be ahead of the game. Whereas you and I kind of took the route of graduate, go to college, get a job. I think if we take this path with our kids, they're going to have the ability to have more experiences and build on that life by having those different experiences and work experience, not fun, go to college and party your ass off experience, but actual useful experience.
Mm-hmm.
Not that bouncing and learning, human psychology at the bar in college isn't useful, but
Well, it has a place.
it definitely has a place. But I think if I could push them in that direction, my goal is to just expose them to as much as I can expose them to, as far as what can you do? What you can do anything. You're young enough to do anything and learn anything. Just put it all together and figure out, what you want to do, and get them out in a time where they can change their mind. They don't have to go $100,000 in debt and then be forced to use the one skill that they went to school for. They can actually, kind of gradually go into either a career or a skill or start a business. But that's
Mhm.
kind of the thought process that I'm having now. And I could change it later. Somebody could slap me upside the head, tell me I'm stupid, but that's kind of where we're headed with it.
Well, like everything else, it's always a work in progress, and there's always changes that are made as we go. See, this is the thing. I look at it, what you and Toya have done with your children, and what you are doing and working towards, and I sit there and I really wish we'd had the opportunity to do that with ours. But of course, ours we did basically the classic, elementary, middle school, high school. And my daughter is going to end up going to college because she wants to go in the medical field.
Yeah.
She wants to
And
start off as a nurse, which I get, and I'm all about nurses, doctors, all that other stuff. I was medic in the army, all this other crap. I get it. It's an important skill set, and I wanted to learn from some of the best people out
sure.
there. But I also want her to have a very realistic, common sense approach to things because I've seen it in the medical field where that's gone away.
Absolutely.
And so I've been looking and finding people that she can talk to, shadow, do stuff like that do take a common sense, reality based approach to things, not just, well, this is what I learned in a book and this is how it's got to be. But at the same time, every summer, and even before she could legally work, she was working. We were at grandma and grandpa's, and she was dealing with the farm animals. She was helping grandma in the garden. She was doing all kinds of stuff. She's getting her hands dirty. She's doing stuff. And yes, we're having fun, but one of the things, it's like she's already told me, Dad, we haven't done enough this year. We haven't gone fishing enough, and we haven't shot trap enough. And that's my fault. I get it. Well, hers too, because we're both pretty busy. But you're sitting there saying, well, they're leisure activities. Yeah, well, at the same time, there's skills that can be learned from those things. And there's always little lessons that we do. It's like things like, for instance, I've got a little 14-foot boat with a little two-stroke motor on it. It's nothing special. But there's little quirks that go along with learning an old two-cycle.
Hmm.
And it runs great, but guess what? If it sits for a long time, the flow gets stuck in the carburetor. You got to know how to take that apart, pop it. So I've taught her things like that as we've gone along. And now she can sit up. We could launch, go out, and be like, it doesn't want to run. She'll tear it apart right there. She knows how to freaking do it. And it's like,
To
okay,
mess with it. Yeah.
so she has a basic knowledge of some of this stuff already. And this year is going to be kind of a neat experience for her because she's interviewing for a position within the critical care unit at our local hospital that she's going to be able to shadow a bunch of the nurses up there and a couple of PAs and a few other things while working there, doing paperwork, doing all this other stuff.
Hmm.
And she's still going to be working at the dairy farm.
Gotcha.
So she's going to be working more than full time, but I like I told her, I go, these are every day you're at the dairy farm, you are learning so much about the care and maintenance of animals, the facilities, everything else. And you're learning what you like, what you don't like, everything
That's
else.
it.
You're an animal person. You're getting dirty. You're doing all this stuff, and this is
Yeah.
huge. I mean, it is building more and more skill sets. It's building more and more of a base for her to build on with everything else she does.
Hmm.
Um, my son, he's not home. I don't have that. But with that being said, like he comes home next week for I think 2 weeks, and he's already asked me, "Hey, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this?" And one of them some range time, do a few other things. He wants to go over some stuff, wants to talk about a few other things. And out of respect for him, I'm not going to go into all that, but it's one of those that the skills that are going into this, he still wants to know this stuff. He still wants to learn it. So he's coming to me and expecting me to freaking be able to teach him this stuff.
Right.
And
Which means you
I
got to get
know,
better.
yeah, I got to
Yep.
get better with it and maintain a certain level of proficiency. But at the same time, there's a couple things that I'm like, I do know the basics, but guess what? Here's the deal. We're going to go see Gramps
Yep.
because Grandpa freaking knows this shit.
Hmm.
So not only, and again, like we've said in previous podcasts and everything else, not only are we teaching, but we're leading by example.
Right.
And here's one where it's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to say I do. So I'm going to go to the man that does. I think that's pretty huge to do with your kids. And if you're doing it like you do it with your kids all the time when you do projects, everybody's together.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and if dad is there with his kids doing this, the impact that makes is huge.
I really didn't understand just how big that impact is, because I can one ritual that we have is at the end of the day is we'll actually sit down as a family, and we have you have to tell one thing that you're grateful for and two wins, two wins and two physical wins. So
Yeah.
you actually we got to sit down, we write it in a book, and then we tell each other. And most of the time, it's what they did with when we do something together. That's what they talk about, and they'll talk about that consistently. So
Hmm.
it's not that we went to the movies or um, something superficial like that. Is that they participated in something that we were doing, and that's the win for the day, and that's what they're grateful for. So that's listening to them talk about that. It's kind of, and then I remember back. I can remember when my father took me camping. I can remember getting lost in the woods and everybody searching for me. I can remember, Boy Scout camp when my father hadn't hiked a mountain in like 20 years and decided to take on a mountain with the Boy Scouts. I thought that
Ooh.
was the coolest. Oh yeah, it was a rough day for dad, but I
Ah,
thought that was the coolest thing. And those are the things that I remember. I don't remember the gifts. I don't remember the cards. I'm the asshole who won't buy you a card on your birthday because I'm like, you're not going to remember what the fuck's in that card. Let's go do
yeah.
something. So
Hmm.
so you're right. I mean, you have to, the participation level as a father these days is, I don't know if I would say more. I would just say that it's what it used to be, what it should be. You have to be there. You have to do the
Hmm.
stuff. You know, James. There's the older master sergeant that used to. You might have not have met him, but there's an older colonel that goes to gist with us that has a stepson now where he's almost 60 and his stepson's like 12. Um, and he talks about running in the woods with him and playing war and doing
Hmm.
that, on a regular basis. And he said you have to do that, or he'll grow up and be grow up and be a little pussy. Is what he said.
Hmm.
So, I'm trying to do that. And just like you said, the fishing, the hunting. That's we got to do more of that. So, even when you think you're doing well, you can always do more for sure.
You can always do a little bit more, and it's. I threw a short up today, and I said, what? This is a 3 minute checkup. I said, take 3 minutes and take a good, long, honest, hard look at yourself and what you're doing in your life. And I said, where are you wasting time?
Hmm.
And I rattle through all the things we always do: sports, and freaking social media, pornography, all this other stuff. And then I rattle through all the stuff we always talk about. Lead by example, make yourself better, get stronger, do all this stuff.
Yep.
And I throw that out there, and I'm sitting there, and don't. I hope nobody ever thinks that I'm going to sit there. At least I can't speak for you. I think you're in the same mindset because you and I've had this conversation. But it's like there's always room for improvement.
Always. Yeah.
And the one thing that I've heard people say and they'll get like irritated over is, well, I want to do this, but if my kids see me fail, if your kids see you fail, great. What's next?
Absolutely.
What's next is the most important. When you got knocked down, did you get back up and try again?
Right.
And that right there, that lesson, on multiple occasions, I learned that from my dad.
Hmm.
And I will never, and again, going back to like the moments in time, like you said, gifts don't mean shit. None of that other stuff means shit. Those moments in time where you did this stuff, and I can't spend enough time with my parents because I know that eventually that's going to be gone. And another man and woman, both of them, they're both very much so jack of all trades in their fields, if you will. My mother handles things my father doesn't, but she knows a lot of the same shit.
Yeah.
I watched her on job sites pour concrete and freaking put forms in for footers and
Yeah.
freaking do all this other stuff. And here's this little 5 foot woman doing this stuff, and you got big dudes all around completely like they don't know what the hell they're doing.
Yep.
And but she can put in a garden, she can raise livestock, she can do all this other stuff,
Hmm.
she can shoot, she can do medical stuff, she can all kinds of crap. But it's like eventually they're going to be gone. So it's like I have to be around as much as possible, and I drag my kids over as much as possible.
Right.
Um, so it's one of those that if parents are sitting there, if dads especially are sitting there, and you're making mistakes, but you keep trying, you keep doing it, you keep getting after it, you keep doing that. That right there is probably one of the most important lessons you can ever teach your children, and that will help teach them to be a jack of all trades because you're gonna fail every time you try something new.
Right.
And eventually you'll get to a point where, yes, you fail less often as you build that base of knowledge and that base of experience. But eventually it gets to where failure is less than success. But
Mhm.
if you've shown your children that all along, that it's just, you just keep driving it, you just keep hitting it, you just keep getting after it, they're going to do it. Eventually they find a spark, even if you can't force it into them, so to speak. Eventually there should be, and I've seen this with a lot of kids I didn't think would ever freaking do it. All of a sudden something happens and they're like, wait a minute, I got to kick it into gear.
Mhm.
And they get after it.
Yeah.
And
That's
when
when
you,
you're the cheerleader.
yeah, and when you see their parents that were fighting and fighting and fighting, and they got to that point, they're like, oh, it's like freaking, you could not ask for a more excited parent if they are really
Right.
truly vested in their children's success.
Right.
And I think the reference of jack of all trades, it's like that is one of those things that is just, I really think that has, because it's been lacking for so many generations now, even amongst our generation, that's a disappearing thing. It's not normal.
Yeah, because it's difficult. So I see two things on that. I say that people shying away from the difficulty, and then I see differences in cultural parents, like like Asian and Indian parents will force
Mhm.
their kids to do a music instrument, and you'll see, so, white parents, they'll be like, well, if he whines about it enough, I won't make him do it. Or
Yeah.
if he doesn't show the enthusiasm, I won't make him
Mhm.
do it because he's ungrateful for it. And I see now as a parent where it really doesn't matter whether they want to. It just, they need to do it for the experience, and that's
Mhm.
that's kind of what I've learned from watching some of the parents that we interact with. Just, the kid will drag his violin to violin practice, but he goes and he participates because he knows if he doesn't, he won't get anything else.
Yep.
So that's kind of the philosophy that I'm bringing into our household. I know what you want to do,
Mhm.
but you're going to do all of this list of stuff that you don't want to do. And I can hear my father in my head saying, you're going to do it like you want to do it in the first place. Cause like, I finally get that. I finally understand what he meant,
Heck
because
yeah.
that's going to build the work ethic when you have to do shit that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that leads to what you and I are talking about. It takes patience and patience and perseverance on a parent's part to weather the crying and the snotty nose, and like, it doesn't, your tears don't phase me. I used to tell
Mhm.
my wife, when the kids were babies and they were crying, did you feed them? Yeah. Did you burp them? Yeah. Do they have a fever? Are they sick? No. All right, let them cry.
Yeah, you
They'll
change their diaper, they freaking,
they'll run out.
yep. Yep.
And you tell that to some of these younger parents, ooh
Ooh.
man, the daggers you get. What do you
Oh,
mean
I
I let
know.
my baby cry? Well,
Yeah.
it's the same thing older, and then people may not agree with me on this, but it's the same thing. Let them
Mhm.
suffer. They still got to do it. And that's just like you and I were talking about before we got on, is the more they do, the more, well, now that, I think what you and I are talking about is considered well-rounded, right?
Mhm.
You and I
Yeah.
went to school, and well-rounded was you read Shakespeare and you did history class,
Mhm.
and like gen eds in college. That, people consider that well-rounded. You and I don't. I think
Mhm.
you can do mechanical, you can do carpentry, you can even paint, you can do art. That's well
Mhm.
rounded, because that is going to help you see things, see problems, and attack problems from different angles and different perspectives, because you
Mhm.
had that amount of experience in your life, and that's going to make you valuable to somebody else. It's going to make you valuable to a group. It's going to make you be able to be collaborative in your problem solving.
Mhm.
So you have to make your kids do this stuff, whether they want to or not.
%.
Even if you've been 10 years with giving them whatever the hell they want, start today.
Mhm.
Start today. Make your kids do shit,
Mhm.
and be okay with them being pissed off at you. And that's, I, I try to model myself after, biblical principles, and that's, I take it to heart that the Bible says not don't pretty much don't piss off your kids for the sake of pissing them off,
Mm-hmm.
but don't let them not do what they're supposed to do.
Yep.
Discipline versus punish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I continually study that, and I continually try to bring that into the household, is where I'm not doing something because I'm your dad and I can make you do it. I'm doing something because I know better than you know what you need right now, whether
Mm-hmm.
you're pissed off about it or not.
There's always a lesson.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm
Uh,
and
and
I'm always learning.
yeah, yeah, and that's it. We have to learn too. And the I want to specify though. We keep talking about this. And we keep talking about skill sets, hands-on skill sets.
Yeah.
Now, 100% important, 110% important. Here's the deal. I'm not knocking, and I know you're not either. We're not knocking intellectual pursuits.
Oh, absolutely.
We're
Yeah.
not knocking, like I said, my daughter's going to be going for medical, and I know there's a whole litany of knowledge she has to get that she's not going to get outside of college. It's just
Sure.
that simple. She needs that. I get that. And I'm all for studying history. That I'm a history freaking goober. I freaking love that stuff. I have a collection of books about that stuff because history is so important because we as human beings, human nature have a tendency to repeat it. So you need to know this stuff. You need to understand it along with everything else. So I I hope people understand I am not and I we are not knocking intellectual side of things. But society has gotten to a point where the intellectual society has dictated that the intellectual side
Hmm.
of knowledge, if you will, I'm trying to phrase this and it's not coming out right, is things like gender studies and you know, looking at just some of the random stuff that's out there that, and then they're wondering why when they graduate college they can't get a freaking job.
And you're hit it
So
right on the head. Yep.
here's the thing: it's like that's not intellectual studies. We need to be studying the classics. We need to be studying history, understand economics to the point of knowing how countries work on the economic side, all the way down to can you balance a freaking checkbook? Because yes, we don't use checks very often anymore. I get it. But guess what? You still got to know how things go with when you got to pay your bills and when you got to put money in and everything else. It's just simple math, people. And that's lacking. So here's the thing you got to learn all these things from the macro to the micro.
Yep.
But at the same time, you need to be learning how to use your hands and function and get by. So as life comes at you in all these different forms and all these different attacks, you can handle it.
Yep. And that's it.
That's
You're
well rounded. That's jack of all trades.
well. I think what you're trying to say, and you can let me know, is the difference between intelligence and wisdom. Right? They're not the same thing. Our society has pushed towards academic achievement and intelligence. So you can go to school, you can spend your $100,000, and you can come out with a degree where you put a bunch of knowledge in your brain,
But
but you
half of
have
it now is not knowledge,
zero.
dude.
Yeah. But on top of that, you have zero application of it.
Yeah.
Like you haven't applied shit. Once you
Mm-hmm.
get out of school, and I've seen that. One of the plumbers that we hired is having extreme trouble finding new HVAC guys to bring on as apprentices because everybody who's going through the HVAC school at BOCES thinks they can come out and they can earn top dollar, and
Oh,
he has to let them know you got all that book knowledge. Now you
yeah.
need the wisdom of actually trying to make this shit work. And I think our society has really overvalued, just like you said, intellectual pursuits,
Mm-hmm.
and now we have a lack of wise individuals
Yeah.
who know actually where, not only have the hammer but know where to hit to make shit
Mm-hmm.
work. So I think we've gone way too far to the left, and we need to bring it back to the right,
Mm-hmm.
and balance that out. We need more wisdom and maybe less intellectual pursuits, like liberal arts studies. No, there's
Yeah.
no need for that.
No, no, there's not. No. No, I agree with 110%, and you did put that in a much better, did word that better than I did. 100%. So, with that being said, I think we've given some pretty good examples of, at least I think so, of what we've done. And I think most people, if you're willing to take a look at this, most dads are willing to actually look at it and you take a step back and look at your own life, you can come up with some ideas on how to figure out. or what to figure out and what you could do within your own household to make a difference.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
And if you can't figure it out, there's, you know, go to the Bible. There's all kinds of examples. There's all
yeah.
kinds of that. And one thing, if you're one of those individuals who didn't have fathers like ours that put us into the trades, you know, I was the first employee in my father's construction company. I know you were in construction. There's so many courses online that you can take with your kids. So, if, you know, for anybody out there who's just doesn't know and has no idea where to go to figure out what to learn with your children, just go online. Even if you go to YouTube, YouTube engineers are all over the place. Just try it. Just try it. Try to build something. Try to make something. Just do it with your kids and mess it up with your kids, because I think it'll be some of the best times you'll ever have.
100%. I'm trying to find. Just a second here. If I can't find it, I'm going to stop here.
There's even, I think there's some apps, some really good apps just for 101 ideas for dads projects to do with their kids. I laughed at it at first, and then I thought, for all the men that I've met who have no idea what a pair of vice grips is, I can see that that's a pretty valuable app, to come up with an idea. And they're simple ideas, building a burn house. Even Home Depot, most Home Depots every Saturday or once a Saturday, once a month, they'll have, build with your kids. They'll provide the kits and the tools, and you go in there and build it with your kids. We used to do that. That was a riot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it gives you a place to start, and if you don't know, you can learn alongside your kids. It's a nice setup. It's not bad at all as far as I'm concerned. I can't find what I'm looking for. I'm gonna have to check it out. Maybe I'll put up a short. There's a gentleman by the name of Jeff Cooper. He founded Thunder Ranch, which teaches firearms techniques to some military, teaches to law enforcement, teaches to civilians. He was a officer in the Marine Corps during Vietnam, and he he had a list of everything basically a boy should be able to do by the time they're 18.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have to bring that up because you look at it. I mean, some stuff, there were a couple things on it, if I remember correctly, that I was like, I can see where that might be a little difficult to get your kids into. But a lot of it was stuff we could all do. And I think it is very, very important today. It hasn't lost its importance, let's put it that way.
For sure.
But I'll have to do some more digging, find that, and I'll post that up.
I just tried to look it up, and there's
I was looking at. There was a couple things I found, but nothing. I've read it multiple times. I just can't remember where I read it.
Yeah, maybe we got to release the Angry Dad update to that.
There we go.
Because I think
release our own version of it.
Yeah, I think there's all kinds of stuff we could probably add, and just like you and I were talking about before, with martial arts, that's why we cross train.
Mm-hmm.
You want to learn as many different arts as possible, so you can see where they intersect, so you can actually whittle it down to the principles.
Yeah, 100%. All right, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I don't think we went down too many rabbit holes. Too bad, anyway. At least I didn't.
No,
not like I normally do.
I got to look up that Pavlov watch, see if we get a.
Dude, I'm all about it. I'm all about it. I will put that sucker on. I'll put like 2 or 3 of them bitches on.
There's a bunch of little GPS things I saw on Amazon that we can, that we're gonna weld into that.
Heck yeah, go for it. You build me one of those, dude. You better make sure that sucker can freaking deliver a punch. I will wear it. So okay. Is there anything you want to add, brother, before we sign off?
No, I just I think in the previous podcast we talked about some of the things we were seeing. In this one, we're talking about what we're doing about it. And I think for any of the dads out there, you just got to kind of, in my opinion, you have to redefine what well-rounded means, and just make your kids do stuff. Are they going to like it? No, they're not going to like it, but they'll like it later. Years down the line, it's delayed gratification at its finest. Your kids are going to be pissed at you for 10 years, and at the end of that 10 years, they're going to run into some other idiot in a situation who doesn't have the skills, and they're going to be the one saving the day, and then they're going to come back to you. You've told me several instances where that's happened to you. I hope that my kids come back and just say, "Hey, Dad, thanks for teaching me that, because I ran into a shit show and was able to weather the storm." So
Yeah.
just make your kids do it. It may not be fun right now. It'll create a memory, but it may not be fun right now.
Yeah.
But it'll be worth it later.
I know both you and I can say, hey, we can look back and say that we've experienced that.
Oh yeah,
And I, for one, am eternally grateful for those lessons from both my mother and my father. So
same here.
I'm eternally grateful. So,
It's like I got patience from my mother and determination from my dad. So I oscillate. I just got jitters.
huh. I wonder where I don't think I ever had patience. No wonder my parents were frustrated with me. Anyway, I can't top that, dude. That was perfect. So with that, I guess we'll sign off. And like always, hey, all you dads out there, keep your heads up. You're not alone. See ya.
Roger that, brother.